It's the Potpourri Show. A comforting quarter of an hour of reflection, nostalgia and encouragement. An alternative to Zumba and quantitative easing. With a soupçon of humour and spiritual uplift. Irena Sendler was a social worker in Poland who defied the Nazis, saving 2,500 Jewish children out of the Warsaw Ghetto between 1942 and 1943. In 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland and took control through murder, violence and terror. Irena at that time was senior administrator in the Warsaw Social Welfare Department, which operated canteens in every district of the city, providing meals, financial aid and other services for orphans, the elderly, the poor and the destitute. Through Irena, the canteens began to provide clothing, medicine and money for Jews, registering them under fictitious Christian names. To prevent inspections, the Jewish families were reported as being afflicted with such highly infectious diseases as typhus and tuberculosis. But in 1942, the Nazis herded hundreds of thousands of Jews into the 16-block area that came to be known as the Warsaw Ghetto. The ghetto was sealed, the Jewish families behind its walls, awaiting certain death. Irena Sendler was so appalled by the conditions that she joined the Zegota, the Council for Aid to Jews, organised by the Polish underground resistance movement. To be able to enter the ghetto legally, Irena got a pass from Warsaw's Epidemic Control Department and visited the ghetto daily, making contacts and bringing food, medicines and clothing. But 5,000 people a month were dying from starvation and disease. She decided to help the Jewish children to get out. Irena began by smuggling children out in an ambulance. She recruited at least one person from each of the 10 centres of the Social Welfare Department. With their help, hundreds of false documents with forged signatures were issued and almost 2,500 Jewish children were smuggled to safety and given temporary new identities. Some children were taken out in sacks or body bags. Some were buried inside loads of goods. A mechanic took a baby out in his toolbox. Some were carried out in potato sacks. Others were placed in coffins. Some entered a court building in the ghetto which had 2 entrances. One entrance opened into the ghetto, the other opened into the Aryan side of Warsaw. They entered the building as Jews and exited as Christians. Can you guarantee they will live? Irena later recalled the distraught parents asking, but she could only guarantee they would die if they stayed. In my dreams, she said, I still hear the cries when they left their parents. Irena Sendler accomplished her incredible deeds with the active assistance of the Catholic Church. I sent most of the children to religious establishments, she recalled. I knew I could count on the sisters. No one ever refused to take a child from me, she said. The children were given false identities and placed in homes, orphanages and convents. Irena carefully noted in coded form the children's original names and their new identities. She kept the only record in jars buried beneath an apple tree in a neighbour's backyard across the street from German barracks, hoping she could someday dig up the jars, locate the children and inform them of their past. But the Nazis became aware of Irena's activities, and on October the 20th, 1943, she was arrested, imprisoned and tortured by the Gestapo, who broke her feet and legs. She ended up in the Pauillac prison, but no one could break her spirit. Though she was the only one who knew the names and addresses of the families sheltering the Jewish children, she withstood the torture that crippled her for life, refusing to betray either her associates or any of the Jewish children in hiding. Sentenced to death, Irena was saved at the last minute when Zagota members bribed one of the Gestapo agents to halt the execution. She escaped the prison, but for the rest of the war she was pursued by the Nazis. After the war, she dug up the jars and used the notes to track down the 2,500 children she placed with adoptive families and to reunite them with relatives scattered across Europe. After the war, Irena Sendler continued in her profession as a social worker. In 1965, she became one of the first righteous Gentiles to be honoured by Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Martyrs and Heroes Remembrance Authority in Jerusalem. He was born in Preston, Lancashire, and known as the man with the golden trumpet. Eddie Calvert was the English trumpeter who enjoyed his greatest successes in the 1950s. Do you remember Oh Mine Papa, Zambezi, and this one, Cherry Pink and Apple Blossom White? Here are some bits and pieces. The Midland Hotel in Manchester was completed in 1903. Here, Henry Royce met Charles Rolls, which meeting resulted in the creation of the Rolls-Royce. Also at the Midland Hotel, the renowned dance band leader Henry Hall started his career. In Manchester, the 1880 Test match was completely washed out, the first time this had ever happened. Also in Manchester, waterproof cloth was developed by Charles Mackintosh, giving rise to the Mac. Large and hungry people would demand a Big Mac.
I need a double cheeseburger and hold the lettuce. Don't be front, son, no seeds on the bun. We be up in this drive-thru, order for two. Got a craving for a number 9 like my shoe. Need some chicken up in here in this dizzle. For Rizzle, my nizzle. Extra salt on the frizzle. Dr. Pepper, my brother. Another for your mother. Double, super size. And don't forget the fries. Yeah!
Turkmenistan, a nation once famed for slave trading and weaving carpets, is now largely dependent on oil, gas and cotton. In fact, the people enjoy free gas and electricity in Turkmenistan. Cool dual fuel, no charge. A popular boy's name in Turkmenistan is Anageldi. It means he came on Friday, which is what people said of Robinson Crusoe when given a piggyback across the island. The hanging of washing across the road was forbidden in the UK in the 1844 Police Act, and those breaking the law could be fined up to 40 shillings. It was the French philosopher Blaise Pascal who said, "There are only two kinds of men, the righteous, who think they are sinners, and the sinners, who think they are righteous. All men's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone." Fortune-telling is widespread in Turkey, and sacred burial sites are revered. A minute's silence is held every year on the anniversary of Kemal Atatürk's death. He was the founder of modern Turkey. In the 1990s, you may have participated in a March for Jesus, which took place in many cities. In May 2009, in the Diocese of Blackburn, Canon Herrick Daniel, Reverend Samuel Corley and Bishop Jeff Pearson undertook a 100-mile prayer walk around Lancashire. It covered 8 days. They prayed in 44 churches as well as outside many hospitals and schools. This pilgrimage of prayer began in Silverdale and ended in Fleetwood, and it took place between Ascension Day and Pentecost in 2009. They prayed at Bolton le Sands, Slime with Hest, Whittley Woods, Hayhouses-on-Sea, Penwortham and Freckleton, and many places in between. Herrick Daniel was converted in Wembley Stadium in 1966. He went to hear Dr. Billy Graham, and when he arrived, the place was packed. He found one available seat in the choir. He was ordained at St. Paul's Cathedral in London in 1975 and later served for 27 years as Vicar of St. Barnabas, Blackburn. He converted an old co-op supermarket into a vibrant church, Christian bookshop and community centre. In the service of the Church of Jesus Christ, the 100-mile prayer walk was undertaken to encourage a deeper prayer life and to inspire and bless the scattered congregations. Brother, let me be your servant. Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. We are pilgrims on a journey. We are brothers on the road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. Alexander Grigolia immigrated to America from Soviet Georgia, learned English, earned 3 doctoral degrees and became a successful professor at the University of Pennsylvania. But despite his freedom and achievements, there was a deep shadow in his heart, a misery he couldn't remove. One day, while getting a shoe shine, he noticed that the bootblack went about his work with a sense of joy, scrubbing and buffing and smiling and talking. Finally, Dr. Grigolia could stand it no longer. With his Russian accent, he asked, "Why are you so happy?" Looking up, the bootblack paused and replied, "Jesus, he loves me. He died so God could forgive my badness. He makes me happy." The professor snapped his newspaper back in front of his face, and the bootblack went back to work. But Dr. Grigolia never escaped those words, and they brought him eventually to the Saviour. He later became a professor of anthropology at Wheaton College, where he taught a young student named Billy Graham. An accomplished professor had to bow to the wisdom of a simple, unlearned bootblack. The Potpourri Show. A miscellaneous collection, a combination of incongruous things, a mélange, a ragbag, omnium gatherum, an amalgam of things. Till next time, it's Derek Lindley wishing you every blessing and thanks for listening.